The examination hall stretched across 300 meters of polished obsidian floor, its vaulted ceiling lost in shadow. 2,000 cadets sat in perfect rows, their various appendages poised over holographic terminals that flickered with soft blue light. The Galactic Defense Academy accepted only the finest warriors from across 12 star systems, and today's tactical assessment would determine who advanced to specialized combat training. Instructor Vex'Thalan walked between the rows, his four eyes scanning for signs of cheating. The Kryllian scales clicked softly as he moved, a sound that made most students straighten their postures. In 3 decades of teaching, he had seen every type of candidate. The arrogant Draken princes, who assumed their lineage, guaranteed success. The methodical Zentari who approached warfare like mathematical equations. The fierce Korathi females, whose claws could shred durasteel. And then there was Maya Reeves. The human sat in row 47, her dark hair pulled into a simple ponytail, her brown eyes focused on the screen before her. She had arrived 6 months ago, the first Terran admitted to the Academy in over a century. Her people had only recently joined the Galactic Compact, their world still recovering from the Vor'Keth invasion that had nearly exterminated them 15 years prior. Most instructors found her presence uncomfortable. Humans were classified as a Class 4 Death World species, but their population barely numbered 2 billion after the war. They possessed no natural armor, no venom, no telepathic abilities. Their military consisted of salvaged alien technology and outdated projectile weapons. By every metric, they should not have survived the Vor'Keth onslaught. Yet they had. Vex'Thalan paused near Maya's station, watching her fingers dance across the holographic interface. The current question displayed in standard galactic script above her terminal. Question 17 described 3 tactical methods to neutralize a fortified command bunker with minimal collateral damage. A standard problem. Most students would list orbital bombardment with precision munitions, infiltration via stealth technology, or biological agents targeting the command species. Vex'Thalan expected competent but predictable answers. He moved on, completing his circuit of the hall. The examination would conclude in 20 minutes. 18 minutes later, an alert pinged his personal datapad. Someone had submitted their test early. Vex'Thalan frowned, tapping the notification. Early submissions usually indicated either exceptional brilliance or complete failure. The name attached made his secondary heart skip a beat. Maya Reeves. He pulled up her file on his pad, intending to grade it after the others finished. Professional protocol demanded he wait, but something made him open question 17 immediately. The screen filled with text. Vex'Thalan's claws tightened on the datapad. She had not listed 3 methods. She had listed 30. Method 1 used conventional explosives, placed at structural weak points identified through seismic mapping. Standard, if crude. Method 2 involved hacking the bunker's life support and introducing sedative gas. Predictable but effective. Method 3 described using the base's own power grid to create an electromagnetic pulse that would disable defenses before a surgical strike. Creative. Vex'Thalan felt his evaluation rising. Perhaps the human had studied harder than he assumed. Then he reached Method 4. His vision blurred. The datapad slipped from his claws and clattered on the obsidian floor. Around him, students looked up from their terminals, startled by the sound. Vex'Thalan did not notice. His breathing had become rapid and shallow. His scales flushed from deep purple to pale gray, a Kryllian stress response he had not experienced since combat. Method 4 detailed how to synthesize a protein-based pathogen using the bunker's own water recycling system, one that would target the specific genetic markers of the command species while leaving other life forms unharmed. The pathogen would cause progressive neurological degradation over 72 hours, during which the commanders would remain functional enough to unknowingly spread the infection to replacement officers who entered the facility. Within a week, the entire command structure would collapse from within, and occupying forces would find a bunker full of corpses who had essentially murdered each other through routine operational contact. The description included chemical formulas, incubation timelines, dispersion patterns, counter-agent specifications in case of accidental exposure to friendlies. It was genius. It was horrifying. It was written with the casual precision of someone describing how to make breakfast. Vex'Thalan bent to retrieve his datapad with shaking claws. He should stop reading. He should delete the file and summon the human for immediate disciplinary review. Instead, he scrolled to Method 5. This one involved psychological warfare, broadcasting specific frequency patterns through the bunker's communication array that would induce paranoia and distrust among the command staff. The human had included a detailed breakdown of how different species responded to various audio stimuli, how to layer multiple frequencies to affect mixed species crews, and how to introduce false evidence of sabotage that would turn the commanders against each other. She estimated a 92% chance of complete command breakdown within 48 hours, with a bonus outcome of the survivors surrendering voluntarily just to escape their own colleagues. Method 6 used nanobots. Method 7 reprogrammed defensive turrets. Method 8 involved kidnapping the commander's family members from off-site locations and using them as leverage, with specific protocols for different cultural attitudes toward kinship bonds. Vex'Thalan's legs gave out. He sat heavily on the floor between two rows of terminals, his datapad clutched in both primary hands. Students whispered to each other, but he barely heard them. His eyes could not leave the screen. Method 9 through 12 explored variations on biological warfare, each more sophisticated than the last. Method 13 suggested recruiting a sleeper agent from among the bunker's own support staff years before any actual conflict, cultivating their loyalty until they could sabotage operations at a critical moment. Method 14 involved training local wildlife to carry explosive payloads into ventilation systems. The methods grew increasingly elaborate. Some combined elements from earlier suggestions into hybrid approaches. Others exploited bizarre loopholes in galactic compact warfare conventions that Vex'Thalan had never considered. Method 23 made him taste acid in his throat. It detailed how to fake a distress signal from a civilian vessel, lure the bunker's response teams into a rescue operation, then detonate the vessel while the teams were aboard, eliminating the base's most compassionate officers and creating a psychological crisis among the survivors who would blame themselves for their colleagues' deaths. Method 27 involved asteroids and patience. Method 30 was the worst. It was simple, elegant, absolutely devastating. The human suggested waiting, just waiting. Installing long-range monitoring equipment and watching the bunker for 5 years, 10 years, however long it took. Learning every routine, every shift change, every personal relationship, identifying which officers had children, which had gambling debts, which had secret lovers. Then when the time was right, not attacking the bunker at all. Instead, systematically destroying everything those commanders cared about in the outside world, their homes, their families, their reputations, leaving the bunker completely intact, but staffed by broken people who no longer had any reason to fight, then offering them generous surrender terms and psychological counseling. The cruelty was not in the violence. The cruelty was in the mercy that followed. Maya had included a note at the bottom of Method 30. In small, precise letters she had written, "This last approach takes the longest but has the highest success rate because it attacks the enemy's will rather than their capability. Most species cannot maintain operational effectiveness when their reason for fighting is removed. Humans learned this the hard way." Vex'Thalan finally looked up from the datapad. His eyes found Maya Reeves in row 47. She sat calmly, hands folded on her desk, staring at nothing in particular. Her expression was neutral, almost peaceful. She could not have been more than 20 standard years old. A medical team arrived within minutes, responding to automated alerts triggered by Vex'Thalan's vital signs. The Kryllian instructor allowed himself to be helped to his feet, his legs still unsteady. He waved away their scanners and their questions. "I am fine," he rasped. "A momentary weakness. Low blood sugar." The medics exchanged skeptical glances but did not argue. Instructors at the Galactic Defense Academy were afforded certain courtesies. Vex'Thalan dismissed them with a gesture and forced himself to stand upright. The examination period had ended. 2,000 students rose from their seats, the hall filling with the sounds of relieved conversation and nervous speculation. Maya Reeves stood as well, slinging a worn canvas bag over her shoulder. She moved toward the exit with the crowd. Just another cadet completing just another test. Vex'Thalan's voice cut through the noise like a blade. "Cadet Reeves, remain." The hall went quiet. Every eye turned toward the human. Maya stopped walking. She did not look surprised or concerned. She simply turned back toward the instructor's platform and waited while the others filed out. When the last student had departed, and the doors sealed, Vex'Thalan descended from the platform. He approached Maya slowly, the datapad still clutched in his claws. For a long moment he said nothing. He simply studied her face, searching for some sign of the mind that had produced those 30 methods. "Explain," he said finally. Maya tilted her head slightly. "Sir, question 17 asked for 3 tactical methods. You provided 30. Explain." The human's expression did not change. "The question asked me to describe methods to neutralize a fortified command bunker. It specified a minimum of 3. It did not specify a maximum. I assumed a more comprehensive answer would demonstrate superior tactical knowledge." "Superior tactical knowledge." Vex'Thalan's voice came out as a hiss. "Cadet, your 4th method describes how to commit a war crime so sophisticated that most species have never conceived of it. Your 8th method violates 6 different articles of the Galactic Compact. Your 30th method is psychological torture masquerading as strategic patience." Maya was quiet for 3 heartbeats. Then she spoke, her voice soft but steady. "Sir, the question did not ask for legal methods. It asked for tactical methods." "There is a difference. There is a difference," Vex'Thalan agreed, "but most cadets understand that certain lines exist, certain boundaries that separate soldiers from monsters. With respect, sir, most cadets have not watched monsters burn their cities." Maya's eyes met his directly now, and for the first time, Vex'Thalan saw something behind that calm exterior, something old and cold and patient. The Vor'Keth came to Earth with overwhelming force. They had better ships, better weapons, better technology in every measurable category. By every tactical assessment, humanity should have been exterminated in 6 months. "Yet you survived," Vex'Thalan said quietly. "We survived," Maya confirmed. "Not because we fought fair, not because we followed the Galactic Compact's rules of engagement. We survived because we learned very quickly that when you are outgunned, outmatched, and facing extinction, you use every single method available. The legal ones, the illegal ones, the ones that make your enemies lose sleep, the ones that make your enemies question whether killing you is worth the cost." He paused. "We did not ask for that war, sir, but we learned from it." Vex'Thalan felt a chill run down his spine. "And now you bring those lessons here." "The Academy accepted my application," Maya said simply. "You asked me to demonstrate tactical knowledge. I did." The Kryllian instructor turned away, pacing toward the windows that overlooked the training grounds. Outside, cadets ran obstacle courses designed to test their physical limits. They looked so young, so eager, so convinced that warfare was about honor and skill and righteous causes. "Do you know why humans were excluded from this academy for over a century?" Vex'Thalan asked. "I was told it was because Earth had not achieved sufficient technological advancement. That was the official reason." Vex'Thalan turned back to face her. "The truth is that the Galactic Compact feared what humans might become if given access to our knowledge. Your species has a reputation, Cadet Reeves, not for being weak or primitive, but for being adaptable, dangerously adaptable. Other species evolve their tactics over generations. Humans evolve them in a single lifetime, sometimes in a single battle. You take our technology and use it in ways we never imagined. You see patterns we miss. You exploit weaknesses we did not know existed. Is that why you look afraid right now, sir?" The blunt question caught Vex'Thalan off guard. He wanted to deny it, but his pale scales and elevated breathing had already betrayed him. "Yes," he admitted, "your test frightens me, Cadet. Not because it is poorly done, but because it is brilliant. If your mind can conceive 30 methods to destroy a bunker, how many methods can you conceive to destroy a fleet, a planet, a civilization?" Maya's expression softened slightly. Almost sadly. Almost sadly. "Sir, I can conceive those methods because I have already seen them used. Every tactic I described, humans either employed against the Vor'Keth or the Vor'Keth employed against us. I did not invent anything new. I simply remembered." The weight of that statement settled over the room like a shroud. "The protein pathogen in Method 4, Vex'Thalan said slowly. "That actually happened. Vor'Keths deployed it against the colony on Proxima Station. 7,000 people died over 3 days while their own children spread the infection through routine contact. I was 12 when I saw the footage. And Method 30? The systematic destruction of everything the enemy loves?" Maya's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "That was ours. The Terran Defense Force identified Vor'Keth breeding worlds and spent 8 months sabotaging their infrastructure without firing a shot. When the frontline commanders received word that their homeworlds were starving, half of them abandoned their positions to evacuate their families. The war ended 4 months later. Vex'Thalan set the datapad down on a nearby desk. His hands were still shaking. "I need to report this to the Academy Commandant." "I understand, sir. You may be expelled." "I understand that too, sir. You may also be detained for psychological evaluation." Maya nodded once. "If that is what you need to do." The Kryllian instructor studied her face one more time. This human child who had survived hell and learned its language, who answered a simple test question with an encyclopedia of nightmares, who stood calmly before him now, neither defiant nor apologetic, simply waiting for judgment. "Before I make my report," Vex'Thalan said carefully, "I need to ask you one question. An honest question that requires an honest answer." "Yes, sir." "If you were given command of a military unit tomorrow, which of those 30 methods would you actually use?" Maya did not hesitate. "Whichever one saved the most lives on my side while ending the conflict most quickly. I would prefer the legal ones. But if a war crime prevents a genocide, I would commit the war crime and accept the consequences afterward. My people learned that morality is a luxury afforded to those who survive. The dead have no ethics, sir. They simply have epitaphs." Vex'Thalan felt his blood turn cold, not because the answer was wrong, but because it was right. Brutally, horrifyingly right. "Dismissed, Cadet Reeves. Remain in your quarters until summoned." Maya saluted, executed a precise about-face, and walked toward the exit. She moved with the easy confidence of someone who had already accepted whatever judgment awaited her. Just before she reached the door, Vex'Thalan called out, "Cadet." She stopped and turned. Method 4. The protein pathogen. "You included counter-agent specifications." "Yes, sir." "Why?" For the first time since the conversation began, something like emotion crossed Maya's face. "Because I also remember what it felt like to watch people die slowly with no way to help them. If I ever design a weapon like that, I want to make sure the cure exists, even if I am the only one who knows it." She left before Vex'Thalan could respond. The Kryllian instructor stood alone in the empty examination hall for a long time, staring at the datapad that contained Maya Reeves's test. 30 methods to neutralize a fortified bunker. 30 windows into a mine shaped by survival at any cost. He picked up his communicator and opened a secure channel to Academy Commandant Threshcore. This conversation would determine the human's fate. It might also determine the future of human integration into the Galactic Compact. But as Vex'Thalan began to formulate his report, a different thought consumed him. One that made his scales flush pale gray all over again. If this is what one human child learned from a single war, what will humanity become after 100 wars? 1,000. And when that day comes, will the rest of the galaxy be ready? His finger hovered over the transmission button. Then the lights went out. Emergency sirens began to wail throughout the Academy complex. Red warning lights pulsed in the darkness. Vex'Thalan's communicator crackled with panicked voices overlapping each other. Hostile contacts detected at the system perimeter. Unknown vessels. Configuration matches Vor'Keth's signatures. This is not a drill. All combat personnel to stations, all students to evacuation shelters. The datapad slipped from Vex'Thalan's nerveless claws for the second time that day. The Vor'Keth had found them. The evacuation klaxons screamed through corridors designed to withstand orbital bombardment. Cadets flooded from dormitories and training facilities, their various species creating a chaotic river of scales, fur, chitin, and flesh. Vex'Thalan fought against the current, his instructor override codes granting him access to restricted lift shafts that carried him toward the command tower. The Situation Room blazed with holographic displays showing the system's outer defenses. 16 Vor'Keth dreadnoughts had materialized from hyperspace, their weapons already charging. The Academy's defensive fleet consisted of 5 outdated cruisers and a handful of patrol craft. The math was brutal and simple. Commandant Threshcore stood at the center of the chaos, her Zentari features composed despite the catastrophe unfolding on the screens. She was 400 years old, a veteran of campaigns across 3 sectors, and she had never lost a facility under her command. "Status?" she demanded as Vex'Thalan approached. "Evacuation proceeding on schedule," an operations officer reported. "Transport vessels will be loaded within 20 minutes. But sir, they will not reach minimum safe distance before the Vor'Keth achieve firing solutions. Then we buy them time." Thresh Corps' primary hands moved across the tactical display, reorganizing the defensive fleet into a screening formation. Order all combat-capable instructors to the hangar bays. We will sortie in training fighters and engage the enemy at maximum range. Vex'Thalan felt his stomach clench. Training fighters against Vor'Keth dreadnoughts. It was suicide with extra steps. But it might buy the students 10 additional minutes. Perhaps 15 if luck favored them. Instructor Vex'Thalan reporting for combat assignment, he said formally. Thresh Corps' eyes met his. Something passed between them. An acknowledgement of duty, of sacrifice, of the price their oaths demanded. Hangar Bay 7. May your ancestors guide your claws. Vex'Thalan saluted and turned toward the exit. He made it 3 steps before a voice cut through the controlled chaos. Commandant, we have an unauthorized launch from Hangar Bay 12. Everyone froze. Thresh Corps' expression turned thunderous. Identify the vessel. Single-occupant trainer craft, transponder tagged to. The officer's voice faltered. Cadet Maya Reeves, sir. The situation room erupted in confused shouts. Vex'Thalan spun back toward the tactical display, his eyes finding the small blip accelerating away from the academy on an intercept course with the Vor'Keth fleet. Get that cadet on comms immediately, Thresh Corps commanded. Order her to return to base. The communications officer worked frantically. Channel open, sir. Maya's voice filled the room, calm and clear despite the screaming proximity alarms that must have been filling her cockpit. Cadet Reeves acknowledging command, unable to comply with return order. I have a better idea. Cadet, you are in direct violation of evacuation protocols, Thresh Corps said sharply. You will turn that craft around immediately or face court-martial. Respectfully, sir. There will not be a court-martial if we are all dead. I need you to trust me for approximately 18 minutes. Vex'Thalan pushed his way to the communications console. Maya, what are you doing? A pause. Then, Instructor Vex'Thalan. Good. I need you to relay a message to the Vor'Keth fleet. Tell them that a human envoy requests parley under the Compact's white flag protocols. The situation room went utterly silent. Even the warning klaxons seemed to quiet in the face of such absurdity. Cadet, Vex'Thalan said slowly, the Vor'Keth do not recognize white flag protocols. They do not take prisoners. They do not negotiate. They exterminate. They did not exterminate Earth. Because your species made the cost too high. Exactly. Maya's voice carried the ghost of a smile. Sir, please trust me. Transmit the message. I promise you, they will listen. Thresh Corps looked at Vex'Thalan. What is she planning? The Kryllian instructor thought about 30 methods to destroy a bunker. About a mind that could conceive nightmares and write them down with perfect punctuation. About a child who learned warfare from monsters and survived to master their language. I do not know, he admitted, but I think we should do what she asks. The commandant's jaw tightened. Then she nodded to the communications officer. Transmit the request on all frequencies. 90 seconds passed in agonizing silence. The Vor'Keth fleet continued its approach, weapons hot, targeting solutions, locking onto the Academy's defensive positions. Maya's tiny craft drifted between the opposing forces, alone in the void. Then the enemy fleet stopped. Every vessel simultaneously cut acceleration, holding position at extreme weapons range. The situation room erupted in shocked murmurs. Vex'Thalan stared at the displays, unable to process what he was seeing. The Vor'Keth never stopped. They attacked until destroyed or until their targets were annihilated. Hesitation was not in their genetic programming. We are receiving a transmission from the Vor'Keth flagship, the communications officer reported, her voice shaking. Audio only. They are requesting visual confirmation of the human envoy. Thresh Corps gestured sharply. Put it through. And get me visual on that training craft. The main screen split. On the left, a Vor'Keth commander materialized. The species looked like a nightmare fusion of insect and crustacean, their chitinous armor layered in overlapping plates, their multiple eyes reflecting no light. When they spoke, their voice came through translation filters as a rasping hiss. Confirm identity of human. The right side of the screen showed the interior of Maya's cockpit. She had activated her own visual feed. She sat calmly in the pilot's seat, her flight helmet resting on her lap, her dark hair loose around her shoulders. She looked directly into the camera, directly at the Vor'Keth commander. My name is Maya Reeves, she said clearly, survivor of the Proxima Station massacre. Daughter of Colonel Sarah Reeves, who designed the counter-offensive that destroyed your breeding world, Krathanor. Granddaughter of Admiral Marcus Reeves, who personally killed your previous Supreme Commander in single combat aboard the flagship Void's Embrace. The Vor'Keth commander's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation that every intelligence analyst in the room recognized. Maya continued, her voice never wavering. I am also the human who just transmitted detailed specifications for 70 different weapon systems directly to your fleet's computers. Biological agents, psychological warfare protocols, nanite swarms, kinetic bombardment patterns, and one very special program that is currently worming its way through your navigation systems. Vex'Thalan's blood turned to ice. He looked at the tactical officer who was frantically scanning for transmissions. The officer's face went pale. Sir, I am detecting a massive data burst from the cadet's vessel. It transmitted 0.4 seconds after she launched. I do not understand how she compressed that much information into such a small packet. Maya smiled at the Vor'Keth commander. It was not a friendly expression. You remember what happened to Krathanor, do not you? How your people discovered that someone had poisoned your water recycling systems 18 months before we revealed ourselves. How your hatchlings began dying and no one could determine why. How your best scientist worked day and night to find a cure. The commander's mandibles had stopped clicking. Its multiple eyes fixated on the human with an intensity that radiated through the screen. My mother designed that pathogen, Maya said softly. I inherited her research notes. All of them, and I just gave you 70 variations, each one specifically tailored to your species' updated genetic profile. Because you see, we have been monitoring your breeding worlds very carefully since the war ended. We know about the mutations you introduced trying to become resistant to chemical weapons. We know about the cybernetic implants you added to counter our electromagnetic attacks. We know everything. She leaned forward slightly. And now you know that I know. Those 70 weapon specifications I just transmitted, they are real. They are functional. And if you can imagine them, you can imagine what would happen if Earth decided to deploy them across all 12 of your core worlds simultaneously. The Situation Room had become a tomb. No one moved. No one breathed. They simply watched a 20-year-old human threaten an entire species with calm precision. But here is the interesting part, Maya continued. I also transmitted the counter-agents, the cures, the defensive protocols, everything you would need to protect yourselves against every single one of those weapons. Do you understand what I am telling you? The Vor'Keth commander's voice came out as a low hiss. You give us the blade and the shield both. Mutually assured destruction works both ways, Maya agreed. You can kill us. We can kill you. We have proven this to each other already. The question is whether we want to keep proving it until one or both species is extinct, or whether we want to try something different. What do humans want? Peace. The word hung in the void between the fleets. Not surrender, not dominance, just peace. You leave our territories alone, we leave yours alone. We maintain defensive capabilities, sufficient to make attacking each other more trouble than it is worth, and we both go back to our respective corners of the galaxy to lick our wounds and rebuild. Humans killed millions of Vor'Keth. V'Praks told billions of humans first. Maya's voice hardened. We did not start that war, but we finished it. And we are willing to finish this one too if you force our hand. Or we can both walk away and never have this conversation again. Silence stretched across the communication channel. Vex'Thalan found himself holding his breath. Around him the Situation Room staff stood frozen, watching two ancient enemies negotiate while their weapons stayed hot and their fingers hovered over firing controls. Finally, the Vor'Keth commander spoke. The human vessel will be permitted to return to the Academy. Vor'Keth fleet will withdraw from this system. But understand this, daughter of Reeves. Your people have made an enemy that spans generations. What you call peace, we call temporary ceasefire. One day the balance will shift. Maya nodded slowly. And on that day we will be ready. Just like we were ready last time. Just like we will be ready every time. Because that is what humans do. We prepare for the worst and hope for the best. We learn from our enemies. We adapt, we survive. She reached for her flight controls. Tell your commanders that the next human they meet might not be as patient as I am. They might not offer 70 cures along with 70 plagues. They might just deploy the plagues and watch your worlds burn. So if you value your species' future, you will take this ceasefire and hold it sacred, because the alternative is discovering exactly how creative humans can become when we run out of mercy. The screen went dark as the Vor'Keth commander terminated the connection. On the tactical display, the enemy fleet began a slow withdrawal, their formation remaining tight and defensive. No one fired, no one pursued. The two forces simply separated like oil and water, each returning to their own space. Maya's training craft executed a graceful turn and accelerated back toward the academy. Her voice came through the comms one last time. Cadet Reeves requesting permission to land. I believe I am late for my psychological evaluation. Threshcore laughed. It was a sharp, startled sound that seemed to release the tension holding everyone frozen. Around the situation room, officers slumped in their seats or gripped their consoles for support. Someone began applauding. Then another. Within seconds, the entire command staff was cheering. Vex'Thalan did not cheer. He simply stared at the screen showing Maya's cockpit, watching her fly home with the same calm expression she had worn during her entire exam. As if threatening an enemy fleet with extinction and then offering them salvation was just another test question. Instructor Vex'Thalan. Threshcore's voice cut through the celebration. Hangar Bay 12. Now. I want that cadet in my office the moment her boots touch deck plating. They arrived at the hangar just as Maya's craft settled onto its landing pad. The canopy hissed open and she climbed out, moving stiffly after the adrenaline of high-speed maneuvering. She saw Vex'Thalan and Threshcore, waiting, and straightened immediately, coming to attention. Cadet Reeves reporting, sir. Threshcore walked a slow circle around the human, her expression unreadable. That was the most reckless, insubordinate, protocol-violating stunt I have witnessed in 400 years of military service. Yes, sir. You stole Academy property. You ignored direct evacuation orders. You engaged in unauthorized diplomatic contact with a hostile force. You transmitted classified military research without proper authorization. Threshcore completed her circle, stopping Kryllian in front of Maya. And you somehow convinced a Vor'Keth fleet to withdraw without firing a single shot, saving approximately 8,000 lives in the process. Maya said nothing. She simply maintained her attention stance, eyes forward, waiting for judgment. How did you do it? Threshcore asked quietly. How did you know they would listen? Because I read the after-action reports from the Terran Vor'Keth War, sir. Every engagement, every battle, I studied their tactics, their decision trees, their response patterns. The Vor'Keth are not mindless killers. They are pragmatic survivors who evolved on a world with limited resources and constant competition. They fight when victory seems probable. They withdraw when costs exceed benefits. They never encountered a species that could match their brutality and then choose restraint afterward. Maya paused. I gambled that showing them both our weapons and our cures would confuse their threat assessment enough to make withdrawal seem like the logical choice. You gambled 8,000 lives on a psychological profile. I gambled 8,000 lives on 18 minutes of research, sir. And I won. Maya's eyes flicked to Vex'Thalan. Someone once asked me which of my 30 methods I would actually use. I told him whichever one saved the most lives while ending the conflict most quickly. Today I used method 31. Give the enemy exactly what they fear most. Then offer them exactly what they need most. Make them realize that fighting you is less profitable than leaving you alone. Vex'Thalan felt something shift in his understanding. You wrote those 70 weapon specifications during your psychological evaluation wait time. I had 18 minutes and access to my personal database. I used the time efficiently. You used it terrifyingly, he corrected. Mayas, do you understand what you have become? You are 20 years old and you just held an enemy fleet hostage with theoretical weapons you designed in less than half an hour. What will you be capable of in 10 years? 20, 50. Maya's expression finally changed. The calm mask cracked slightly, revealing something raw underneath. Sir, I will be capable of whatever I need to be to protect people who cannot protect themselves. That is what my mother taught me. That is what my grandfather taught me. That is what every human who survived the Vor'Keth learned. She swallowed hard. We did not choose to become weapons. War made us into weapons. But we can choose what we aim at, and when we fire. That choice is what separates soldiers from monsters. Threshcore and Vex'Thalan exchanged a long look. Some wordless communication passed between them, the kind that only develops after decades of shared service. Finally, Threshcore spoke. Cadet Reeves, You are hereby suspended from all classes pending a full investigation into today's events. Maya's shoulders sagged slightly. I understand, sir. You are also being recommended for immediate advancement to the Special Operations track, with a provisional field rank of Junior Lieutenant. Your suspension will be spent in intensive tactical training with our elite units, where you will teach them everything you know about unconventional warfare. Upon completion, you will return to standard courses as a special advisor to the Tactical Studies Department. Maya's eyes widened. Sir, the galaxy is changing, Cadet. Species that once ignored each other now brush against territorial borders. Old alliances are fracturing, new threats are emerging. Threshcore's voice carried the weight of centuries. We need officers who can think like you think, who can see patterns others miss, who can end wars before they begin or win them in ways no one expects. Humanity's integration into the Galactic Compact is not just about bringing Earth into our civilization, it is about learning from what your people survived. She turned to Vex'Thalan, continue 28 Vex'Thalan. Instructor, you are assigned as Cadet Reeves's primary mentor. You will oversee her development and ensure she understands the ethical frameworks that must guide her capabilities. Vex'Thalan felt his scales pale slightly. Sir, I am not certain I am qualified to mentor someone who frightens me. Then you are the perfect choice, Threshcore said dryly. Fear breeds caution. Caution breeds wisdom. And wisdom is what will prevent this cadet from becoming the very monster she fights against. She looked at Maya one more time. Do you accept these terms? Maya straightened to full attention. Yes, sir, thank you, sir. Dismissed. Both of you. I have approximately 6 hours of diplomatic crisis management ahead of me, explaining to the Compact Council why a first-year cadet conducted unauthorized negotiations with the Vor'Keth. Threshcore's expression suggested she was not looking forward to those conversations. I expect detailed written reports from both of you by morning, and Cadet. Next time you plan to save everyone's lives, at least send a warning first. Yes, sir. They left the hangar together, instructor and student, walking through corridors that had nearly become tombs but now rang with relieved laughter and celebration. News of the Vor'Keth withdrawal had spread through the academy like wildfire. Students clustered in groups, replaying sensor footage of Maya's impossible negotiation. Vex'Thalan waited until they were alone in a quiet service corridor before speaking. I read your entire examination before the attack. All 30 methods. I assumed you did, sir. At the time I thought you were dangerous. Brilliant, but dangerous. A mind capable of terrible things. Maya stopped walking. And now I think you are exactly what you said. A weapon that chooses its targets carefully. A soldier who knows the difference between necessary evil and unnecessary cruelty. Vex'Thalan met her eyes directly. But Maya, I need you to promise me something. Promise that you will never lose sight of that difference. That you will never let the ease of winning through horror blind you to the cost of such victories. The human was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of memories far older than her years. My mother designed the pathogen that killed millions of Vor'Keth hatchlings. She died 3 years later, took her own life, left a note explaining that she could not live with what she had become, even though what she had become saved our species. She knew the difference between necessary and unnecessary evil, and it destroy anyway. Tears gathered in Maya's eyes but did not fall. I promise you, instructor, that I will carry that lesson forever. Every weapon I design will haunt me. Every life I take will mark me. But I will pay that price if it means other people do not have to. That is the bargain humanity made. We turned ourselves into monsters so our children would not have to be. Vex'Thalan felt his own eyes burn. In all his years teaching warfare, he had never heard anyone articulate the true cost of survival so clearly. And what happens when there are no more wars to fight, when peace finally comes and stays? What will warriors like you become then? Maya wiped her eyes and managed a small, sad smile. I guess we will have to learn how to be human again. It might take a while. We have forgotten a lot about who we were before the Vor'Keth came, but maybe that is another battle we can win. Maybe that is the real test. She started walking again, heading toward her quarters to begin the suspension that would somehow transform into the strangest promotion in Academy history. Vex'Thalan watched her go. This young human who wrote nightmares with perfect punctuation and negotiated peace with threats of annihilation. His communicator chimed. A message from the medical bay. The doctor who had responded to his earlier collapse wanted to schedule a full examination. Apparently, stress responses severe enough to trigger automated alerts required follow-up care. The Vex'Thalan deleted the message. He had a feeling that stress would be a permanent companion as long as he mentored Maya Reeves, but that was acceptable. Some burdens were worth carrying. He pulled up her examination file one last time, scrolling through those 30 methods, reading them with new understanding. They were not the ravings of a sociopath. They were the careful documentation of lessons learned in blood and fire. Each method a memorial to something humanity had endured or inflicted. Each one a promise that such suffering would never be forgotten. Method 31, the one Maya had improvised in 18 minutes, would need to be added to the official record. Future students would study it. Future tacticians would analyze it, and future enemies would fear it. Vex'Thalan began typing his report to the commandant, choosing his words carefully. The galaxy had just witnessed something extraordinary. A human child had ended a potential massacre with nothing but data packets and psychological warfare. She had turned her species' trauma into a shield for 8,000 innocents. And somewhere in the depths of space, a Vor'Keth fleet was transmitting the 70 cures back to their homeworlds, beginning the quiet work of preparing defenses against weapons that might never be deployed. All because one human had learned that the most effective warfare sometimes meant making your enemy strong enough to survive you. The title of Vex'Thalan's report crystallized in his mind. He typed it across the top of the document, "On the strategic value of teaching mercy to monsters, a case study in human tactical innovation." It would probably cause another crisis in the Compact Council, but some truths demanded to be spoken, regardless of the diplomatic fallout. Vex'Thalan saved the file and transmitted it. Then he went to the archives to begin assembling the curriculum for teaching humanity's hard-won lessons to species who had never faced extinction. It would be difficult work, dangerous work that would require confronting uncomfortable truths about the nature of survival and the cost of victory. But as a human cadet had demonstrated today, the most important battles were often the ones fought without firing a shot. And sometimes the greatest weapon was simply showing your enemy that you understood them completely, feared them appropriately, and chose peace anyway. The test had asked for 3 ways to kill. Maya Reeves had written 30, then deployed a 31st that let everyone live. Vex'Thalan suspected that in the decades to come, military academies across the galaxy would spend considerable time studying that final method, one that weaponized hope instead of despair. The one that promised destruction so credible that choosing peace became the only logical response. It was, he reflected, the most terrifying lesson humanity had to teach, and the most necessary.